Hi, Mr. Hunt. How are you?
Great.
Thank you for agreeing to see me today. Before I start the interview, would you please read out to our SBTN viewers and introduce to your current as well as your future constituents?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. My name's Dan Hunt, and I'm running for state representative in the seat formerly occupied by Mayor Martin Walsh. And there's a special election this coming Tuesday, March 4th.
Great. As some of our viewers may or may not know, Mr. Hunt is running for the state Senate seat in 13th Suffolk District.
Yes.
It was previously occupied by State Representative Martin Walsh, who was elected as a mayor of Boston last year. So my first question to ask you is, what made you decide to run for state representative? Basically, what motivated you to choose to run for the office?
Yes. Well, I come from a family of public service, and my mom was a nurse at Kearney Hospital, and my dad has been involved in healthcare in Massachusetts. So I'm running because I want to give back to the community that's given me so much. My parents are both extreme examples of community service, and I'm running to improve the quality of life of working families in Dorchester and Quincy.
Right. As someone who has been a state employee and a member of Massachusetts Bar Association, who do you see yourself transferring your knowledge and skill to become a state rep, and what your plans for the future should the voter choose you to be their state representative?
Oh, thank you. So I've been working in state service for the last 10 years. I was
Great.
the chief of staff on the Committee on Economic Development.
Wow.
And went to law school at night, as you mentioned. Things that I'd like to focus on are education, public safety, and small business development, especially along the Dorchester Avenue Fields Corner corridor.
Right. Given the continued economic crisis or situation, especially due to the sequester implemented in DC,
Yes.
how are you capable or able to assist your constituent in dealing with their current financial situations? Moreover, do you have any plans targeted to minority communities such as Vietnamese American voters who have been especially impacted by the slow growth of the economy?
Yeah. Tough questions here on this show. So, yeah, the federal government, as you mentioned, the sequester and other financial issues, I think it's important on the state level, because I'm walking into hopefully a state rep role,
Right.
for the state to step up and occupy some of those places formerly by the federal government. So for senior citizens in particular, Medicare is being reduced.
Right.
So I think it's important that the state step up and fill those roles.
Right. Mr. Hunt, could you provide us with some detail of your proposal to improve the healthcare, education, and the small business in your district, as well as the district you would like to represent in the future? In addition, what is your vision to reduce unemployment?
Okay. So I serve on the Neponset Health Center board, and I think it's so important that we have access to quality local health care.
Yeah.
As I mentioned briefly, the small business community is so important. To have local jobs. There are over 1,000 entrepreneurs here in Dorchester, and if we can grow one job at each, we can create 1,000 local jobs. I grew up in the Fields Corner, Neponset area, and the strength of that business district reflects the whole strength of the overall community. And I think it's so important that we foster development there.
Right.
I've got some ideas for small business loan funds for recapitalizing some of those programs, as well as a bridge to banking for additional small business loans in communities and for populations that don't have access to loans. So for non-traditional businesses, I propose a bridge to banking, so where local banks can have access to a state revolving fund. And that primarily would be for women and minority-owned businesses.
So, Mr. Hunt, if you elect, what do you think are the expectations placed upon you by the constituents, particularly within the certain ethnic communities you are trying to present it? How do you see yourself addressing concern of your constituents, especially for women and those in ethnic community?
Well, definitely big shoes to fill with former representative, now Mayor Walsh. He was someone that was so very accessible. I've tried to employ some of those principles by putting my cell phone number on my business cards and on my website.
Right.
I've also spent a lot of time getting to the whole community, trying to make sure that that I attend the various celebrations. So I was at Viet Aid for their New Year celebration at IBEW and the Teachers Union for that New Year celebration. I think it's important, that you get out and you're available to the community. And if elected, would be accessible not only to the Vietnamese community, but also the Cape Verdean community, the African American community, and other ethnic groups throughout the district.
Great. You will be running against a few other candidates,
Yes.
Just as John O'Toole. So what are the differences between you and other candidates, and what do you offer voters that your opponent may not be able to do so?
Yeah, so all fine candidates, and I think Dorchester's would be well served by having any of them elected into office. So three of us are attorneys. I'm an attorney, and there's a civic leader. But the thing that separates me from those other candidates is that I've got extensive experience on the state level. I mentioned that I was chief of staff on the Committee on Economic Development, so I have written several pieces of major legislation. I also worked for a state agency building schools, and I think schools are so very important. Access to quality education, building new schools in Boston and in Dorchester is something that Mayor Walsh has already talked about. For the last 3 years, I worked for Governor Patrick, advocating for the State Parks Agency. So I've developed tremendous relationships with elected officials on the state level, and I don't think any other candidate can claim that.
Awesome. Mr. Hunt, I know that you have support our community and work with Dr. Hai Van Ha to fight for human rights in Vietnam and promote democracy in Southeast Asia. If elected, do you continue to support us? And how do you view your relationship, the Vietnamese American community, and what do you hope to accomplish should you receive support from this community in your race for the state representative?
I think it's important that we support human rights throughout the world, and where there are communities that are suppressing human rights, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to stand up and speak on their behalf. I have had conversations with Dr. Hai Van Ha about human rights and the work that he's done in Southeast Asia. I also think it's important that we keep a close watch on other countries as well. And, I have developed great relationships in the Vietnamese community, and I would fly under the flag of the Vietnamese community out there. So I'm definitely going to be a strong advocate for human rights across the Commonwealth.
Once again, thank you so much for taking the time out to see us today. And are there any last words that you would like to express to the viewers watching our interview today, as well as your supporter and prospective voters?
Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for having me on your show. And to the viewers, I would say that my name's Dan Hunt. I'm running for state representative on Tuesday, March 4th, and I ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Xin kính chào quý vị khán giả của đài SBTN. Kính thưa quý vị, hôm nay là ngày 23 tháng 2 năm 2014. Trường Giang đang có mặt tại nhà hàng Sài Gòn Seafood nằm trên Dorchester, tiểu bang Massachusetts để tường thuật lại cuộc gặp mặt giữa ông Dan Hunt cùng với cộng đồng người Việt tại tiểu bang Massachusetts do Hội Thăng Long tổ chức. Xin mời quý vị theo dõi những hình ảnh sau đây.
Hôm nay Kim Loan, anh Khang Nguyễn và Brian Nguyễn của Hội Thăng Long tạo ra cơ hội để có sự gặp gỡ của ứng cử viên Dan Hunt với đồng bào của chúng ta tại Boston, và cuộc gặp gỡ ngày hôm nay mục đích là để cho đồng bào của chúng ta tại Boston có thể đặt ra những câu hỏi với ứng cử viên Dan Hunt để xem nếu ứng cử viên Dan Hunt thắng cử thì anh sẽ đem lại lợi ích gì cho cộng đồng Việt Nam tại Boston.
Thì trong cái cuộc tranh cử này thì chúng ta thấy có 5 người, và 5 người đó thì ở trong thành phố Dorchester. Tại sao trong phòng Thăng Long để ủng hộ ông Dan Hunt?
Chúng tôi có thể nói rằng là văn phòng Thăng Long chúng tôi hiện thời bây giờ không phải là ủng hộ ứng cử viên Dan Hunt, mà chúng tôi chỉ tạo ra cái cơ hội để cộng đồng Việt Nam Boston được gặp gỡ với Dan Hunt, và hy vọng khi anh thắng cử anh sẽ đem rất là nhiều quyền lợi đến cho cộng đồng Việt Nam của chúng ta tại Boston và vùng lân cận.
My name's Dan Hunt and I'm running for
Xin kính chào quý vị, tôi là Dan Hunt, tôi đang tranh cử ứng cử viên State Press sẽ được tổ chức vào ngày 4 tháng 3.
Dan, it's very nice to talk to you today. What motivated you to run for the state
representative? Động cơ nào khiến cho ông ra tranh cử chiếc ghế này? Tôi xuất thân từ một gia đình có truyền thống báo đáp. Mẹ tôi là một nurse tại bệnh viện Carnegie, còn bố tôi là một active Senate. Tôi muốn đứng ra để đáp trả lại những gì mà cộng đồng ông đã mang lại cho gia đình tôi. Kế hoạch của ông là gì? Có tốt hơn so với những ứng viên khác hay không? Tôi đã có cơ hội gặp gỡ với 5 cái ứng cử viên khác và họ đều là những ứng cử viên xuất sắc tuyệt vời. Tuy nhiên điều khiến tôi tách biệt khác biệt với họ đó chính là tôi đã có kinh nghiệm hơn 10 năm làm việc tại Steakhouse và tôi đang cố gắng làm việc để mang lại những lợi ích cho cộng đồng như là xây dựng thêm công viên mới và giúp các doanh nghiệp vừa và nhỏ. Cộng đồng người Việt xung quanh đây rất là nhiều, thì nếu ông được thắng cử thì ông sẽ nói gì với họ? Theo tôi được biết thì cộng đồng người Việt chiếm 30% khu vực quận 13 này. Thì tôi đã có cơ hội gặp gỡ với nhiều người kể từ khi bước vào cái buổi gặp mặt Meet and Greet hôm nay. Thì cộng đồng người Việt Nam thực sự rất là một cộng đồng rất là mạnh. Cộng đồng người Việt là một cộng đồng làm việc rất là chăm chỉ và care về gia đình, cho nên tôi sẽ cố gắng để mà giúp cái vấn đề phát triển doanh nghiệp nhỏ cũng như care tới về gia đình hơn. An ninh là một vấn đề hàng đầu ở Dorchester, nếu ông đắc cử thì ông sẽ có những kế hoạch như thế nào? Tôi sẽ làm việc chặt chẽ hơn với các cảnh sát địa phương cũng như các cơ quan an ninh khác cũng như MBTA. Dorchester cũng có nhiều doanh nghiệp vừa và nhỏ, thì những doanh nghiệp đó sẽ nếu mà phát triển thì sẽ đẩy những cái tệ nạn này đi ra những chỗ khác.
Dorchester Avenue, then that will displace or move out some of the criminal element.
Education,
Như ông đã biết thì cộng đồng người Việt tại Dorchester thì đa số là nói 2 thứ tiếng, thì ông có thể cho biết thêm về cái vấn đề giáo dục và làm sao để giúp những người mà nói tiếng Việt có thể dễ dàng hòa nhập với khi sang mà nói tiếng Anh không ạ? Theo tôi nghĩ thì chúng ta nên tạo thêm điều kiện cho những người nói đa ngôn ngữ, thì đó là chúng ta nên có một chương trình đa ngôn ngữ ở các trường công cộng, tiếp tục dạy tiếng Việt, và một thứ hai nữa là dạy tiếng Việt dành cho những người mới bắt đầu học để họ có cơ hội phát triển hơn.
Like there are several programs here locally, I would be very supportive of that.
Thank you very much for answering our question, and I wish you luck for the March 4 election.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I appreciate your vote on March 4th.
It's Brian Nguyen, and we're with the planning committee. The reason we're doing this today is it's really just to get the Vietnamese community to come out together as one to support a local official. Elect candidate Dan Hunt running for state rep. For Brian and Bang To Chuk, it's really to get the community together and show that we have a voice, and show the community that it's important to have a voice within the community, and show the community around the Vietnamese community that we are. We care about the community. We care about what's going on in the community. Care about the politics. And that's why we're really here today. It's just to show that, hey, we're here, we matter, we care, and we need to be listened to.
Okay, so there are 4 other candidates, just not Dan Hunt. So why just Dan Hunt here today?
Yeah, it's funny. Dan Hunt. Dan Hunt is he's a local. Guy, he grew up in Rosendale. He went to Boston Public School and Boston College, just like Brian did. And he heard that Brian has been active in the community, and he gave Brian a call, and he said, "Hey Brian, I'm Dan Hunt. Can't you help me?" And I say, "Okay, Dan, let's meet up." And that's how we met up. And he really interested in knowing more about the Vietnamese community, and he wants to help. And Brian just like him, so that's why that's why Brian do this for him, because he's really genuinely care about the Vietnamese community, and he lives in our area, Dorchester, and he wants to make a difference. He wants to be our advocate. He wants to help us.
So that doesn't mean that if other candidates contact you and would like your help, you do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how it works. It's I don't really look at any other candidates different. It's just by chance. Maybe Dan got lucky by just calling me, or I don't know how it works. But I'm very big on giving a voice for our Vietnamese community. So that's why I did it for Dan. But I also like Dan. I think he's a really good guy. When I look at candidate, it's not really about their candidate or what they're gonna be as a politician. But I just want to see him. I see him as as a person. So and I like him as a person. So hopefully he's gonna be a good candidate too.
Thank Brian.
Thank you.
Chuyên gia thường trực từ thành phố Dorchester, tiểu bang Massachusetts chân thành cảm ơn quý vị đã theo dõi chương trình phóng sự cộng đồng và hẹn lại quý vị trong chương trình kỳ tới.